get any worse, any worse, any worse. So I know a lot of y'all know that he didn't. I'm gonna call you Aubrey. I ain't gonna say your real name. I ain't gonna say your rap name, Aubrey. Y'all, him and Party Next Door came out with this album, mixtape, whatever, and he's blaming Spotify for his album flopping. You got nobody to blame but yourself, because for one, the label is not gonna push this shit, because you trying to set up the goddamn in a lawsuit. You trying to sue him. So I'm surprised you even dropped this shit, because of that little freestyle that you done did when you was crying about LeBron and all them. They made you take that shit down, buddy. But bro, we about to get into the video seeing about how he crying about this album flopping and blaming other people other than himself. But before we do that, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you share the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and let's get to it.
Now, when it comes to Drake, the absolute meltdown he is having right now because his brand new collab album with Party Next Door, SSS for You, is doing terrible is something like we have never seen before, because with what Drake is doing now, it's truly the ultimate form of defeat, as beyond ever accepting any sort of accountability and looking at how he can improve himself and see what went wrong with this new album and entire era in his career, Drake is doing one of the most pathetic things anyone can do, which is try to blame every single person but himself on why this record is doing so bad. And now, before we go any further into just how desperate what Drake is doing is to try and create a distraction from how bad the release of this album actually is, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. And just as I have said in my past few videos, the Drake fans are still mad at me and they really don't want you to hear what I have to say, so please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me out a ton and make sure that we can all see just how terrible this downfall from Drake has gotten. And so now, with that out of the way, when it comes to what is easily already the worst album release Drake has ever had with SSS for You, overall, when it comes to the trajectory of Drake's entire career and how it has all led to this pathetic point, it is absolutely wild to see how one of the biggest artists in Drake reached a point where, after managing to lose every single thing he had all because of his own carelessness, that he didn't just double down in this losing strategy that has taken away every single thing from him, but that he decided to release the most important album he ever has directly off the method that has left him without any sort of success for over a year at this point. And now, after all of this, which of course has resulted in the actual album we have gotten in SSS for You, as Drake has seen this album open up with half the streams that his last album For All the Dogs did. And in its following days, the record has put up the worst streaming numbers he has ever seen for new music. For Drake, despite the fact that he put out an album that was so bad that it seriously has lines like this, and of course nobody is listening to it because who...
I got flags like I haven't been brushing my teeth. Wow.
Even wanted this in the first place, in an attempt to try and avoid and ever facing his own failure for releasing a horrible album that nobody asked for. As at the same time as all of this, the current landscape of the charts are showing Kendrick Lamar to be reaching all...
But I ain't gonna lie to you, a lot of people been asking for this album because they've been talking about this album for, I think, like 2 or 3 years, but they just never got around to it. But so be waiting that long for an album, a double album, you know what I'm saying, a collab album, and it turned out to be horrible, it wouldn't even worth the wait.
All-time levels of success, as from top albums to top songs, Kendrick has music from all eras of his career changing how hip-hop is being seen by everyone, which of course this is all because of his own success and the momentum from the Super Bowl. Right now, as Drake is seeing an all-time low in success and Kendrick is never doing better, Drake has started to find his new way to try and cope with the fact that his time on top is over, and now he's really no longer even anywhere near the top list of stars in rap or in music as a whole right now. Because after seeing the failure of of his new album with Party Next Door and the success that Kendrick Lamar has had simultaneously? While Drake won't say it directly, Drake has made it very clear by both telling his good buddy Act to spread certain narratives, which he is now supporting and interacting with to get his entire fan base angry at the music industry, and of course not at him and his own failure. Now, what Drake wants everyone to think is that the reason why SSS for You is doing so bad is because the industry is suppressing the album, and they are not just blocking Drake, but they are pushing Kendrick Lamar's numbers to go up further and further. And I mean, with all of this, while we can definitely say that Drake's numbers are no longer being inflated because his relationship with the industry has completely changed as a
Which is facts. Like, his relationship with the industry very has changed. But people say, instead of just taking that loss and getting back to making music, good music, you chose to go a different route. And it's like you making all these horrible decisions. I even blame the motherfuckers that's around him. Like, it's like he can't think for himself. So it's like, and the people around him can't think for him either. It's like, bruh, somebody stop this man.
again. He did crumble his own image there by putting them within a whole suit. Still, even with that said, what we can also obviously see is that Drake is not being suppressed. But what is clear is that for the first time in really his entire career, he has been placed on the same playing field that every other rapper has ever been on for the most part, which means that their success is only going as far as they can take it with a quality record that also resonates with as many people as possible. And again, why this is all so obvious is because while Drake is trying to say that he is being pushed out of the industry and that they are doing nothing to help him and this record, if you just look around at the truth and not what he said, the album was on the cover of every streaming platform when it dropped, and it was featured heavily across the biggest general, rap, and R&B playlists on them as well. And so when you see this and also see how Drake is trying to push this narrative that he has no support, and yet the album and its songs were all over major playlists and on the front of these platforms, and they were also being posted. What we are seeing is that just like when Family Matters and Not Like Us came out, these platforms do what they are supposed to do first, which is to allow the people to facilitate what they want to listen to, and based on what gets a better response. Which in this instance, it was either Drake's new album or GNX and Kendrick's diss tracks and entire catalog. Overall, more people are listening to Kendrick Lamar than this new Drake album. So because of this, now the platforms push what's popular based off the recommendations of what the people have chosen. And it really does not take an expert to see how these things work when we are on the highest stage, of course. And again, we are looking at the actual facts and not the narratives that people like Drake and Ack are trying to push. And just adding to my point even more, and really showing how delusional Drake is, because all he is trying to do by blaming Kendrick Lamar, GNX, and the industry for being pushed over his album is really just give himself a pass for this album failing and ultimately letting his fans give him more time to try and do just one thing right, is that when we compare this Drake and Party album to another recent collab record in hip-hop with Vulture's One, that record was actually being suppressed as it was pulled off platforms and had no support from any of the streamers whatsoever, which then meant you could not find the album unless you went to the artist pages directly, as everything else was hiding it, and it got no playlisting, which is one of the big things that boost these albums. And
Exactly. But a lot of people not checking for it. That's the thing. A lot of people is not. The only people checking for Drake is Drake fans. You know, and it's like it gives you that motive, like, okay, a lot of stuff, and then a lot of stuff that Kendrick been saying within these diss tracks is coming to light more and more and more of Drake. But a lot of people don't want to face it. But it's coming out more and more, so it's like, what other proof you need? You know what I'm saying? Like,
first place. And what's so funny is that even with all of us seeing how that record was actually being suppressed by the industry, really just showing how bad Drake's failure is, as the people just do not care what he is doing. Vultures didn't
Facts.
just outstream Drake and Party's album on its opening days and beyond, but it ended up becoming a #1 album and had a #1 song with Carnival as well. And so really, when you just understand the music industry a little and look beyond the scope of Drake and Kendrick and compare SSS for You to Vultures 1, we can clearly see that what's actually happening is that Drake is trying to push a story that didn't actually happen, because you can see the clear support from the industry that this record got, which again, in comparison, when we saw how the music world reacted to an album that they did not want to see succeed, just how far they went to try and prevent it from even being seen by the people with Vultures. And so clearly with Drake and Party's record, this is just not the same case, no matter how they want to talk about it. And so moving beyond the lies, when it comes to really what's happening with Drake and Party Next Door, I got bad news for Drake fans, but the record is not being suppressed. And in actuality, it's just not a good record and people do not care about it. And if you just look around at the entire landscape of how people are currently interacting with music, just look at the trends and what people are talking about. Drake just lost the listening base that used to tune into his work no matter what, and whether he lost the rap fans to Kendrick Lamar, who again, in this time with GNX being out, he has just redefined and set a new bar for what a mainstream blockbuster rap album should look like. And because of this, an album like GNX is still seeing songs top the chart for the first time, while Drake and Party's album is doing worse than anybody could have even imagined, and it's just been out for a few days. And now even beyond hip-hop, as this is an R&B album technically, with the competition there being people like SZA and The Weeknd. Again, the people have just chosen to support other artists in this time who are releasing better albums, and if you listen to all of these records, whether it's GNX, Lana, or Hurry Up Tomorrow compared to SSS for You, it won't take you long to figure out why all these albums are outperforming Drake's, and this is just because they offer a way better experience. And really, what's so confusing about all of this is that Drake had time to listen and compare his record to the work of all three of these names and so many others in the industry who are doing great things, and when it comes to Drake's downfall overall, when this is looked back on and people try to understand how an artist who was unable to lose even when dropping bad music for so long was eventually able to fall this much, one of the reasons that will be very clear is that Drake did not ever properly estimate any of his competition and just believed that because something was from him, that it would be able to outperform anything, whether it was one of the greatest diss tracks of all time from Kendrick, one of the biggest rap albums of all.
And that was his problem, bro. He let his ego really get to a level that he wasn't. You know, you got lucky with Meek Mill. I ain't gonna lie to you, you got lucky with Meek. And even now, people are apologizing to Meek Mill because of how they treated him during the beef between him and Drake. And it's like, now, it's like Drake really feels like, oh, I can't be beat. Nobody can take my spot. You got proven wrong. But it's the fact that you can't like deal with it. You can't deal with it. That's one thing for sure. Like, he's a sore loser that can't deal with he lost. And it's like, now it's you blaming everybody. You blaming everybody. Blaming everybody and their mama. You trying to sue everybody and their mama. And it's like, bro, just take accountability for your actions. Just do that, man.
All time from Kendrick as well, or one of the most anticipated R&B albums from The Weeknd. And beyond this being such a flawed way of thinking for anybody, this is why this album is doing so bad, because pretty much what Drake entered into one of the most competitive times in the music industry with was a collection of throwaway songs from For All the Dogs and CLB that have Party Next Door thrown onto them, and again, between the failure to make not even good but interesting and engaging music, and the fact that he is not getting that unfair boost that only he did because of the place the industry used to hold him in. When we look at the failure of this album, Drake has nobody to blame but himself, because he's really just caused his own downfall at this point by not being able to realize that everything has changed around him, and that with the industry finally evolving and moving past accepting his mid as the status quo, these albums and strategies that he has been using are just no longer gonna work. So when it comes to GNX DMX and Kendrick Lamar ruining this album from Drake, which again is the big claim he's trying to make and that he is going to continue to push, so just get ready for that. In a way, you could say Drake is right that Kendrick is a reason why this thing is failing, but it's not because of industry games and that they are suppressing Drake to push Kendrick, but it's because Kendrick Lamar has just delivered a better collection of music and experiences to fans at this point by far, and with all of this coming together at the Super Bowl, which is now bringing hip-hop to entire new boundaries, which we are seeing as Kendrick Lamar now has over 100 million monthly listeners, which is by far and above a record for rappers. Overall, we are seeing right before our own eyes that hip-hop and music has moved on from Drake and is now enjoying much more captivating music in every single sense of the word possible. And so while Drake will complain about all this, and I am sure what he is going to say will only get a lot worse in terms of how he tries to take zero accountability for this album failing and just put it onto everybody else as more numbers come from this thing. No matter how he tries to push this narrative and people like Akron and make everything they do push this exact same idea. Overall, Drake can't change the truth of everything no matter how hard he tries, and because of this, as long as Drake and everyone around him stay in this place where they can't actually realize why the music isn't working and why so many other artists are just outperforming them now and it's not even close, they're only going to continue to fall, and as Drake clearly can't and won't accept any of this. Get ready for this to become the status quo because we are only going to see this more and more from him. And so now with all of this said, let me know. What do you think of what Drake is trying to say about Kendrick Lamar and his music outperforming his new album? Do you think he is right at all? Or do you think he has lost a fair game and he just can't accept the reality of having to face that like I do? No, I can't wait to hear what you have to say. And if you made it to this point in the video,
But like he said, bro, it's just take accountability, bro. You know, your music ain't hitting the same. It's like nobody in the industry is supporting you anymore. You know, it's to the point, bro. Just move on to something else. You know what I'm saying? It's like every rapper has had his fair share on top. Wayne done done it. Jay-Z. I'm pretty sure if Biggie and Tupac, you know, was the same. But it's like, but with their music it hit different, you know. So I think, you know, but it's like everybody, it changes every year. Every year it changes. So it's like, you know, just live in the moment, do what you gotta do, make your money, invest. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people ain't gonna do this forever. You know what I'm saying? But that's the end of the video. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure y'all share the video. Make sure you subscribe to the platform. And I'll be back with more.